And now I am audio recording us. So now we can start the interview.
All right.
Hi, Virginia. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you making time for us on Corporatainment.
Thank you, Amora. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I know that you've been working on films and writing and screenwriting and all that good stuff for so many years. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you got started?
Oh gosh. Well, I've been working in film since 1994, but
Mm,
but that was didn't really have anything to do with the screenwriting part of film. I worked on set as a double for children because I'm not a big person. I'm 5 feet tall, so whenever they were filming a something in the Bay Area, and they needed someone to double or to stand in for kids, they always called me. So I worked on several films, pretty much from 1994 up until about 2006. However, the screenwriting part came about because my uncle, Scott Amour, who's no longer living, wrote a novel. Actually, he wrote 3 novels. And I worked with him in trying to adapt 2 of his novels, Dreamer
oh,
and East of Java.
hmm.
And we were about ready to do the third one, and then he passed away. But
Mm.
it sort of started a whole, I don't know, roller coaster of other films and other film projects for me to work on. I attached a very good screenwriter with me, who is my co-writer, C.B. Hurst, and he's been writing with me now since 2008. And we've got now, oh, I don't know, four four feature films and 2 television series that we've written.
Wow, that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. It's been a long process, but they and they keep evolving. No matter what. Every time you write something, you always go, "Oh, I need to change that." So they keep evolving all the time. So basically, I got started because of my uncle, and if it wasn't for him, I would never have done it. So
Wow, that's amazing to have someone in your family that can kind of guide you through that. I know nowadays it's kind of hard to find a starting point, especially for me. I don't have much of a background in the arts at all. I
uh,
always wanted to do acting and singing. So, I guess for someone starting, what advice would you give to them to get their feet wet? Because it can be overwhelming with all the information out there. So, how would you
yeah.
suggest nowadays a good way to start?
Well, it depends really what you want to go into. If you want to go into acting, I would suggest signing up, for some acting classes. Study your craft. Um, and there are some good places here in San Francisco that offer, excellent training. I mean, there's Academy of Art University, of course, and oh gosh, the theater downtown San Francisco is quite good. Berkeley Repertory, Oakland has, just go online and Google because there are some really good places up here where you can get excellent training. But you're not gonna get anything unless you get training. I mean, you can't just all of a sudden say, "Oh, I want to act," and then you hand out your resume to a casting director, and they go, "What have you done?" Well, I've done nothing. Unless they're really looking for your type, but
Yeah, I was thinking about going on TikTok and doing like pair like monologues with people. Like I did a
uh,
couple of them that were really really fun. Like there's like this acting challenge that was going on and like a TikTok acting challenge and I just went ahead and participated in a few of those and they were really fun. But do you think those are
uh-huh.
like the same as like I don't know, like having a reel? Or could that be
um,
added to my reel? What do you think?
right, yeah, I think it would be good. Yeah, I have a friend that's an actor that lives up in Canada. In fact, he's read when we read our screenplays online. He reads with us. He's a young guy, about 28, and he does that all the time on TikTok, but he's filming he works a lot for the Hallmark channel up there. The Hallmark,
Wow.
they do a lot of Christmas, kind of stuff up
Oh,
in
wow.
Canada because he's in Calgary right now filming, so but he does that. He goes on, he said, yeah, I've got this online class. He's all excited about it. I go, yeah, but you got to keep your skills up no matter what. It's really, really important, And, I mean, that's and Google. There's tons of groups on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
that are beneficial as well. I've been working with a Native American actor based out of Oklahoma as well, and Dan hasn't done much at all, but he's already been because there's not a lot of Native American. He's Comanche,
Mm,
so there's not a lot of Native American actors out there, and
mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
he gets cast in a lot of things down in Texas and Oklahoma, that
Wow.
area, but he's had no training. And I said to him, I said, well, Dan, you really need to get some training. I don't know that area real well, so I didn't know who to recommend him to, but you just go online and Google acting schools, acting coaches. I mean, no matter what, you're bound. I mean, of course, with the pandemic, everything has changed and everything is online or on Zoom now, so it makes it a little bit different. So that, as far as acting goes, the reason I got started as a double was because when I was in college, I lived in England. I didn't live in this country, so I basically was educated in London, and I studied film and theater in England, and I worked for a small repertory company there. Did little theater in London, and so I had this kind of like weird resume that I put together that showed that I did have some theater and theatrical training and film training. So that was a big help, even though I never really used it. But just having that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think training is really good as well too. Is it important because you need to practice, or is it important because um, there's just certain things that you can't learn on your own when you're doing the craft over and over again?
Sorry. Yeah, it's both. It is both. I think it's important because the producer and directors, that's what they look for. They look for people that have had training. That's the first thing. They go, well, let's see your resume. Let's see what they've done. And I think that's the main thing, is that that's what, if you want to work, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm trying to think for like someone that's working a 9 to 5 job. What is some ways that they can incorporate taking classes and building their skill set um, while they're holding like 40 hours a week,
Hmm.
50 hours a week of full time job? I know you
Right.
mentioned you used to drive for Lyft. So something as
Right.
flexible as that might be a really good option for
It-
people
A lot of
to consider.
a lot of Lyft drivers, particularly in LA
Mhm.
and Los Angeles area, they drive for Lyft, but they're screenwriters, they're actors. It's sort of like before they used to wait tables, so now they drive for Lyft and Uber. So it's something that is what has been really good. DoorDash as well, they drive for DoorDash. So I didn't have that opportunity when I was younger and working because they didn't exist. Um, but I always worked weekends. That was one thing that I worked either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I had a certain amount of days where I could focus on my art or my writing or my film work. Or I'm also a virtual artist. So I could paint. I could get my artwork out there, and so I always had maybe 3 days, 3 or 4 days where I could actually work on it. So working weekends is something that I suggest, and also if you work weekends, you tend to make more money. So for me, that's the way I looked at it.
Okay. Yeah, I consider going down the tech route and just working at some different tech companies on the corporate end because I
Uh-huh.
figured you'd make more money that way and you would accrue PTO, sick time, and you didn't have to work weekends. And so I said, oh, well, maybe if I can work for a tech company that has all these cool perks, then I could go into, acting and stuff on the side. But Lyft
Yeah.
and it can work both ways. Like you can work for Lyft and drive for Lyft and have flexibility that way. You could also work for the corporate version of Lyft where you're working on that way as well too. I guess it just really depends on about being like creative and
Uh-huh.
seeing opportunities in different roles. Someone had a question for you. His name was
Ah,
Chris Markle, and he is essentially he's a actor and also a writer, and he makes films as well too. And his question for you was, do you think filmmaking chose you, or do you think you chose filmmaking?
ooh. Um, I think that it was again. I think it was both.
Ah,
Um, I've
okay.
been as a small child. Um, I was one of these kids that would be glued in front of the television watching reruns. I mean, I grew up when we had rerun movies on television, so that was our videos, right? And
Mhm.
I mean, I was just a little kid, and I would just be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! This is," I mean, and I would watch the movie from a different standpoint from the average viewer. So, in a way, I think maybe it shows me. It said, "Okay, this is what you're going to eventually do when you grow up." But my life has taken, I'm over 60, so my life has taken many different twists and turns. Okay. But I raised a couple of kids, in between. I traveled all over the world, and I but again, I'm one of these people who's a firm believer in following your passion, and as long as your passion is beneficial to other people, then you're going to succeed. And that's
Mm.
kind of what I try to do. I wanted to work in film, when I was working with my uncles, because I thought no matter what, films create employment, and that was the big plus for me. There's 250 people per film that work on set, so you're creating jobs, you're creating employment, you're creating positive energy. So that was another aspect of mine of going into film. But I truly believe that it's not going to. You shouldn't do it for the money. You do it because it's a passion. I come up with stories and ideas because they come to me, and I go, oh my God, let's do this or let's try that, So, that's kind of where it's at. It's like in India, they call it following your dharma. And, it's not karma, it's dharma. But it's basically the same thing of, find your passion. That's the main thing I think for young people that they need to do is find their passion.
And don't give up on it even if you
Right.
need to have a full-time job.
Right.
I
Don't
think
give
it's
up. Yeah.
really yeah, I think, like, the thing that I noticed when I was working in corporate is that, like, there are a lot of people that had all these, like, creative aspirations at one point, but then they needed to pay the bills, so then they went into work and they never looked back into creative, like, endeavors, but I hope that, like, I can share some light through my podcast about how people can do both because it
Right.
is totally possible to do both. Do you have experience working with people who had like, I guess, like 9 to 5 jobs while they were also on set?
Um, well, my co-writer, C.V. Hurst, he's a microbiologist, and that's what his day job is. He works in a laboratory all day long. He creates.
Wow.
He's currently just finished working. He's working obviously on the COVID-19 virus vaccine, and so
Wow.
that's what he does for a living. And so he does have a regular 9 to 5 job. One of my other co-writers who wrote a screenplay with us about in 2015, Tom Walsh. We're all older. I mean, we're like over 50, but he he works for a company based down in Modesto. But he lives in Santa Rosa, so it's a bit different. But they create labels for packaging. He's one of their main executive officers there, and he oversees all the labels, all the manufacturing of labels for, well, for a bottle of wine. They label for it, so that's what they do. They produce labels. So I know several people that are managed to have a 9 to 5 job and you know, still stay creative. With me, it was a little bit different because I'm also a painter, and before I was working in film on a regular basis, I created, I guess, over 200 images of my artwork and turned them into a printing business and marketed them, in different venues. But my main thing was on the weekends, I would do arts and craft fairs here in California. And sometimes I would go all the way up to Oregon and Washington. And, when you go to like a big fair, craft fair, the booths are all set up and all the artists are there. And I have my little booth set up with all my artwork, and, I turned them into, I actually had a business where I was
Wow.
selling
Wow.
refrigerator magnets of my artwork for many, many years. And what happened was when I first started working with my uncle, Scott, um, shortly after I had a really bad accident and I broke my back
I'm
and my
sorry to hear
knee.
that.
I'm fully recovered now. So, but
Uh-huh.
I was laid up for a year and a half, and I was my back and my knee at the same time. So I could no longer do the art fairs because the lifting was just too much for me. Obviously, I couldn't, too strenuous. So I had to give that up. And then, in a way, I look at it as a good thing because it got me to focus more on my screenwriting and content creating for film and television. So, and then I started driving for Lyft. So,
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you. What is an interesting question that you may want to ask the next interviewee?
the next, I'm sorry. Oh, the next person you're going to interview?
Yep.
Okay, and what do I need to know the background of this person and what they do?
No, you don't need to know the background. They're all creative artists
Oh, okay, okay. I wasn't quite sure. Okay. Well, let's see.
slash entrepreneurs in their own rights.
Okay. Um, why do you think that art or music or theater or film make a difference? Why do you think that the arts are important, and why do you think they make a difference? What draws you to be creative?
That's a good question. Well, Virginia, I want to thank you for visiting us today on the show Corportainment. It was so nice to have you on. I'd like to know, how can we keep in touch with you? Where can we find more of your work?
You can always go on our website, which is Lunaventure. It's all one word, lunaandventure.com. And all of our projects are listed on there. And I update it, maybe once a month as to what's going on with our projects. And sometimes I put little things when we've gone to conferences and things like that.
Any new films that should be coming out soon that you've been working on?
Not right away, because of the pandemic. We haven't been able to film anything this year. But we do have one, which is a casino heist film.
Hmm.
It's called Payback in Manila, and hasn't won. It's a finalist right now in a film festival in Oaxaca, Mexico. So we're hopeful that it will kind of launch it into the production stage. So, but that's
Beautiful.
just one.
Wow, that's super exciting. Definitely keep me in the loop with that. But thank you so much for
Thank
for
you.
visiting the show. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and best of luck. I mean, I think this is going to take off. I'm glad that you're doing this, and that hopefully you'll be able to inspire other people as well.
I hope so too. Like that's the plan. I hope I don't. I'm doing this as my first podcast, and you're like the maybe fifth or fourth person that I've interviewed so far, and I have some upcoming interviews coming up. So I'm excited about all this and to see where it goes.
Awesome, awesome. And best of luck to you.
Thank you.